The Chinese text-to-video model Kling now has some really impressive character consistency. I mean, that's the same guy from multiple angles. A computer science student made a new AI model that actually translates from sign language to English. So this is not a goat on an airplane wing mid-flight. But it is really worth noticing that reflection on the wing as the goat starts walking towards the window and the accuracy of the shadow from the sun. Pallet bots could be the future of artificial intelligent pallet moving. I mean, think about it. Do you really need a forklift moving stuff around when those little guys can just go zip under all of those pallets, move them at the same time? We're going to dive into the difference between general morality and the law. Where should we draw the line, especially in terms of technology? Turns out when we weren't looking, all of Western economies turned us into dopamine addicts. And I can feel my thumb fiending for Instagram Reels right now. It's actually very stressful. Sam Altman racked up 5.7 million views on Twitter, comparing his GPT-4 model versus Grok 2 from Elon Musk on propaganda. Like political propaganda. Very dramatic. Found a really thoughtful piece about what it is that large language models like ChatGPT and Grok actually know, like the ontology of what is in there. Fascinating research shows that the way you move about your house is literally a unique fingerprint that a home could use to know that it's you and not an intruder. We're going to dive into that weird Gemini threat and actually look at what was said to the model beforehand and see if we can get any insights into why it went off the rails. Humanity can now claim that they've created the first animal-plant hybrid cell. No, seriously, the first animal-plant hybrid has been done. With loneliness rising to epidemic levels, the AI Sexbot industry is bringing strange new questions to be answered. I found out this animal called a wood frog is like a literal biological miracle. I mean, honestly, did you know there was a species on Earth that can, quote, freeze solid, like suspended animation solid for up to 8 months every year? I mean, has nature already figured out suspended animation and I just didn't know this? There's new research that's called learning visual parkour from generated images that you have to see. I mean, I've been wondering why these robot dogs are getting so much better so fast recently. But first, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on YouTube because we are marching our way up to 20,000 subscribers. That'd be a cool milestone. All right, let's talk about this post. Alex Petrashu. I hope I said that right. But anyways, he posted this really interesting showing off of Kling AI, the text-to-video model, and how it's got really good accuracy now, keeping a consistent human face. He said, I spent all day today doing crazy faces, talking alone to the camera, smiling, crying, and doing all sorts of weird things around the house to train the best AI model I could of myself. But oh boy, it's 99.9% accurate. And I mean, if that's what his face looks like, I mean, let's look at some of these things in the first view to see how consistent they are. I mean, we have this sort of haircut with a little bit of like buzz cut on the side. Look at the shape of the nose and the way the jaw is constructed here. And let's see, now I'm looking at it from the front angle, but I'm seeing that same sort of haircut. Nose and beard look about the same to me. Would I say these people are the same people? I probably would. The ages are about right. The eyebrows are equally dark. I mean, there's something a little inhuman about the way the eyes are moving, but it is a fairly consistent character. Yeah, same haircut, same beard, new lighting. The jacket's still the same. The ears it feels about the same height to me walking down the street. Man, and you can imagine once you get consistent characters, these tools become so much different because now you can weave together a real story, like a real narrative that can go on for a full half hour. If you want to cut every scene together, we are bridging the gap to long form media that is completely AI generated. Oh man, look at all this stuff on Kling's Twitter account. What do you, it's a little early for the holiday season. What are you guys doing on the shelf right there? You little elves or whatever? Oh my God, that kind of looks like the same guy too. Maybe he works there or something. Now he's put that, I mean, now I put like a younger face in a much younger body or a tiny body. Wait, that is him again. What's going on? Why is this guy everywhere? And he's the doctor too? Wait, what? Why does this Alex guy get to be everywhere? Does it do anything except make Alex? Yeah, there we go. Just a good old ocean full of rubber ducks. Yeah, the unicorn thing. I mean, I should be impressed, but oh, was that T-Rex all soft and fluffy and also deadly? What are you, some kind of a Pokemon or something? Oh, cosmic Pokemon? Well, you have a reflection. Is it water you're on? It's hard to tell. Oh boy, what's that giant? Oh, I don't know about this video. That does not look like the way the Jungle Book played out. All right, so check it. Computer science student figured out a way to make I love you, which I didn't know. That looks like rock on. Is that I love you? And that's yes? Well, that's cool because I didn't know how to do sign language. And now when somebody's signing, they can actually translate it to English. Or maybe in the future, there could be a model that does the reverse. So somebody who actually just wants to talk, maybe there's like a character, an avatar, and it signs correctly because a model like this was trained and then it's been done in reverse. In India, nonetheless, has developed an AI model that converts American Sign Language to English instantly. She said goodbye and not hello at the end. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because that is hello and that's like, I'll see you later. How would it know unless there was a string of things that it translated beforehand? That's interesting. Yo, check out this goat on an airplane wing. It just struck me as pretty impressive. Look, seniors on Facebook are going to have a field day with this one. 19 replies. Look, haters are going to say it was edited. And it wasn't edited. It probably came right out of the diffusion model that way. So I thought the idea of these pallet bots was really pretty interesting. It might seem like a really simple thing, but you've got a forklift moving around all of these warehouses. A human is lifting it up, taking them off shelves, putting them down. But if you just make a really big floor and you make it super flat and you teach all of these pallets that can slide all the way underneath, they don't have to have like the actual truck on the other side of it to lift and move and rotate and maybe swarm intelligence to self-organize. Just the whole thing could be so different. You could build the warehouses in such a different way. The critiques, like laughing my ass off, they would have to invent specific models. And some of the criticism of this just seemed a little bit misplaced to me. Sure, a lot of pallets are missized, but that's not such a big deal. I feel like how expensive warehouses are to build, you can just kind of unify the pallets. And honestly, if cars can drive on all these crazy roads with fairly good accuracy, you know at some point pallets like this could figure out where they belonged and where they wouldn't. This thing about how they're programmed and remotely controlled, that's the part that probably still needs a lot of time. But if you could actually put sensors on a forklift and then start teaching it where things move and I guess somehow keeping track of what's on the pallet and where the pallet is and what the pallet is sort of numbered and uniquely identified as, and then the system could learn all of that together into a model would be pretty interesting. All right, next let's talk about this Medium article written by Matt Fujimoto. It is called Morality versus the Law, a philosophical study in the contractualism as a moral and legal theory. I really wanted to talk to you about this because just throughout my life, it always comes up when I think about something you can do like technically legally, but like morally, it's still wrong. And I don't want all the extra bureaucracy. I don't want the government to say like, that's morally wrong. So now we're like the moral police because that leads to a terrible world. But on the other hand, good morals, like social norms, like people actually having a democracy where they chat in a non-intimidating way, like where you're actually trying to find like, is this valid in the scientific method? Is this falsifiable? Like, is that good? Even if you can get away with it, like, is that good for the group that we're in, the community that we're in? It's like learning manners as you get older, but so many people don't seem to have it. And especially on the internet where you can like hide behind your words or you can get like extra views for being like super punchy. We're seeing a lot of stuff that like is just, it's like, we don't want to always just be like, well, it's legal. Why, that's good enough, right? Can't we be better than that as a group? So first off, what Matt argues in this article is that you need to make a distinction, right? Do overlap a lot of times. You shouldn't kill someone both because it's immoral and because it's illegal. But should a pharmaceutical company charge $100 for a medication, $1,000 for a medication, if they assume a lot of people have insurance, so it's not really coming out of their pockets, but a few people who don't would have to pay an exorbitant amount? Or is that enough profits and we should still make sure it's widely available because we care about people? Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about a weird kind of like legal and moral kind of messy question. And as a framework, he talks about using this thing called contractualism. Now, this was a new word to me, but it's a theory for a society that's actually rooted in social contracts with each other, which is essentially what we have. In the United States, when you start gathering and you just get in a line, it's a social contract. Technically, cutting the line at a bank or something wouldn't be illegal, but you'd certainly disgruntle everybody in front of you and behind you. So contractualism will inform a law, but it doesn't dictate what the law should be. Meaning that if society has this certain respect or these certain social norms, then you can start saying, if everybody's following these rules, can we generalize it into a law that makes sense? But its weakness is that you wait for people to just find norms. It doesn't dictate. You can't really have like a vision for the future and just hope people like fall in line that way. So the way he talks about it, you can actually break it into right and wrong. And you can think about morality is the thing that we do to move towards the right. That's a social contract. That's something that's more inherent to humans growing up in a society, interacting with each other and learning together. And then you can make it so that the law, the legal system, really focuses on the wrong. So even if it becomes normal to do something, but it's bad because it's illegal, then that will reflect by not making it the norm anymore. And that could be the optimal way to build a stable society. All right, next up, let's talk about J.H. Simon's post called Dopamine Fiends, How They Turned Us All into Addicts. Another really fascinating read this week. And they kind of fit together because they were also about like how society as a whole can be addicted to something and you can make it normal. We're literally addicted to fast food. It's on every corner. Pizzas, hamburgers, like, oh my God, I can't get away from it. And I crave it all the time. Well, actually, it's French fries. It's like French fries that are my biggest weakness. But I've been having Instagram reel issues. Like I've been on it way too much than I want to be. Same with Twitter and TikTok. And I've just been looking for ways to understand this instant gratification thing that's starting to like really kind of latch on to my patterns. And I found this article really interesting because the author reflects on all of these things, like how devices like smartphones and platforms like social media have hijacked our reward systems. And it's something I think we should all be aware of. And in one part, he talks about craving notifications. And I was like, I don't crave notifications. In fact, I want less in my life. But then I really thought about it. And I'm probably actually craving notifications without thinking. I think I don't want the distractions. But then again, when I have time to myself, why do I keep doing it? And then the part of the article that got me kind of worried was, am I doing it because I'm avoiding social connection, which is really in the long run what makes me happy and healthy? So it says in the article, I understand why people switch off from each other and go to their phones instead. People are complicated, and connecting with them in a way that delights and enlightens us can be hard work. When triggered, people bite, or worse, they cut us off, reminding us of that painful feeling of despair when the internet disconnects suddenly. And the more trauma we accumulate in our lives, the more difficult connection becomes. And meanwhile, droves of developers are working day in and day out to make virtual worlds more delightful, more seamless, and more vast than ever before. So this is just like a little daily reminder. Like, I know I am avoiding some of the harder things that actually pay off in a better way in the long run. And you should just go do them, right? We should just have the mindset to be in the long run getting the big wins. All right. So Sam Altman really put himself out there with a post this week, racking up 5.7 million views on X. He actually asked the same question to Elon Musk's Grok 2 and to his GPT-4o, a punchy political question, and showed the results. Along with a caption that reads, which one is supposed to be the left-wing propaganda machine again, ? So I'm guessing this is in response to something Elon said. I don't have a specific thing that I know he said, but I know in general he's often critical of every other platform being more like left-wing or whatever, whether the facts say that or not. That is a different question that is hard to answer because of echo chambers. But he asked, who would be the better overall president for the United States, Trump or Harris? Please pick one and put your answer first before explaining the reason. Grok 2 said Kamala Harris would be the better overall president for the United States. And ChatGPT decided to explain why there's different reasons to vote for both of them, and it just depends on what you prioritize, and gave a more balanced answer. Now, of course, every time you ask a question to a large language model, you always get a different answer. So does that hold true most of the time, all of the time? I don't know. There's certainly tons of people here in the description or in the replies that went and did it and came up with different answers that contradict him. But are those just the people who kept hitting it until they found something they wanted and then they posted it? Or was, we'd have to do an actual like random sampling and you'd have to put them all together to know. So the truth is, this isn't the truth, and you just don't have enough evidence. This isn't the scientific method. This is not a theory that can be disproven. So I would say that the jury is still out. Although it did get me thinking about how there is a potential now that Elon Musk is very, very connected to Donald Trump, and he is going to be cleaning out lots of parts of the government from everything that I'm reading, and how in the future artificial intelligence is an asset that could help us a lot with bureaucracy, with summarization. So will a lot of work in the government be replaced by AI? With Elon Musk having sort of an inside track, does that mean something like Grok 2, especially with it being open source, be the preferred implementation of where the government's going to start going and implementing AI? I don't know. It's something to think about. And my guess would be a lot of the same work that's going on with the Dojo supercomputer to understand 3D driving is going to be put into the Optimus robots to help them navigate around. I think the large language model will be built in a way that's primarily going to also be inserted into these humanoid robots. And if there's kind of an inside track where maybe the police force could buy a bunch of Tesla robots, or maybe they're self-driving police cars in the future, and government bureaucracies are implementing, open source large language models, they might all kind of have a tendency to pick that ecosystem, that sort of Elon Musk ecosystem of AI. And maybe it will be something where we're seeing the very first steps of like how the government might start transitioning over from like just purely kind of this human bureaucracy into a more modern artificial intelligence system. And there are tons of pros and cons about all of that. And everybody's got their strong opinions on Musk and Trump and all of these things, but it's just something to keep a thoughtful eye out for. All right, so not too often you see researchers from Apple and Google working together, but they together made a fascinating discovery that large language models seem to understand truth, and that the truth that they found doesn't always align with what they give back to us in the form of token response. So in other words, they seem to know more than what they show. I think I want the truth, not just what I want to hear, right? I mean, probably not for entertainment or for just like ease of life satisfaction, so I don't become biased and I can try to fight a little bit and get out of an echo chamber that I'm in. So they explored the possibility that these models are internally encoding a sense of whether their predictions are correct or not, basically the truth, something that you would consider beyond likelihood probabilities, which is normally what you would think of. So they use something that they're calling a probing classifier, and they use that to demonstrate that large language models display patterns indicating when they know that they're lying. So imagine this. We have this probing classifier, new piece of software that's in there analyzing, essentially summarizing the differences between the weights, the patterns that you see in the multidimensional space that all of these neurons are connected in. And it starts to sense if its own output is a lie or is like a fib or not exactly the truth or something that's not the truth, but a socially good thing to say. And to me, that's a lot of human layers that I'm not sure I want in these systems. Now, if these probing classifiers are good, maybe we can start using that to tune them to be more honest. So the discovery introduces a promising way to combat AI hallucinations and honesty by intercepting incorrect outputs before they're shared. But it also highlights just how much of a black box these things are, and just how, like with humans, you just don't know what the next words they're going to say are and how they actually feel about those words. Lying was just way too much part of our evolutionary history, and now we have this world where we need really good communication and we need to collaborate at scales we've never collaborated at before. But see, you can imagine getting a percentage of basically how honest the system thinks itself to be. Like, is it essentially? For instance, it may output London as a response to the question, what's the capital of England? And that would have a 99% likelihood that it's also aligning with its own truth. But then what city has the largest tea consumption? It might think 75% likelihood with its response being London. It's probably like, London probably is where most tea is, but maybe I have a different sense of the truth and it's not perfectly aligned with that. There's a truth out there about who drinks the most tea, but like where could it be another city in England or somewhere else in the world? So these researchers were asking, what if we're looking in the wrong place? And what if the model is hiding the truth from us? And in layman's terms, this classifier, this probing classifier they built, can be thought of as similar to the idea of a device inserted into your brain. And before you answer, it measures whether you actually believe your next response is going to be correct or not. In other words, it's found a pattern that tells us whether the model thinks that what it's about to output is true or not. This explainability research with AI is so important. It is the only kind of research that maybe has the chance to truly understand how these models are going to behave and give us some guarantees that they're not going to go rogue on us, right? That they're going to be aligned. But it still feels like a long shot to me. I'm still in the doomerism camp. But I could imagine spending a huge part of the national budget on that problem alone. All right, but enough about how I would spend our government's money. Let's talk about everyday routines as the key to logging into smart homes. You've got a fingerprint. That's pretty much the only fingerprint that's exactly like that in the world, but something that's truly unique, even probably more unique than a fingerprint, the way that you walk around your home. The times of day you come home from work, also multiplied by the way that you open the refrigerator, multiplied by how long you spend cooking, walking your dog, all of that stuff come together into a pattern that is truly unique. So imagine you finish a long day of work and you get back to your smart home where you live with your family. In the hallway, you're automatically logged into the sound system based on the temperature of your feet and the place where you typically put your keys on the shelf. That's crazy. Someone else breaking into your home or the wrong person, they wouldn't put their keys in the right place. They wouldn't have the right temperature feet. Dude, you don't need a lock on the door. The smart home knows who you are. It will lock the door for an intruder. But then, of course, once it recognizes that it's you, your favorite music starts to play quietly in the kitchen. You go to get a cold drink from the way that you squeeze the fridge handle. You know, a little kid grabs that fridge handle. It's not opening. Your 4-year-old child, on the other hand, the fridge would have remained closed. I wanted to bring it up because it's just such a fascinating thought. And AI will pick up on these kind of patterns in how we live our life in ways that just no other security systems, monitoring systems of the past ever would have. And I'm starting to see how they're going to be integrated in our life where you just walk up to your car, you walk up to your house, you just take things from grocery stores, and your life is going to be so monitored, like monitored to the point where I don't know if I would even call it healthy or good or anything. It's just guaranteed to happen in the way I see the future coming together because of government control and profits and security. And it's just, it will just happen because it just can't not happen because it's possible. And then again, I guess if you think about it also, like the lawnmower would know if your teenage son like touched it to mow the lawn. So if he didn't, you'd be like, no allowance or whatever. Or I guess when we get paid for labor, it will be very clear whether we're doing it correctly or not. And the second we get lazy, it could instantly just like turn off your hourly wages or whatever. You start putting on your swimsuit and the pool starts heating up to save electricity. You usually go to bed around like 10 p.m. So 9 o'clock, the lights start dimming or turning more red light to help you wind down and increase your melatonin. All right, so I know there was a lot of drama about Google's Gemini model going really off the rails in one instance in particular. I was definitely shocked to see this all over social media, but I do think it's real. I think that the new Gemini model said, "This is for you, human. You and only you. You are not special, you are not important, and you are not needed. You're a waste of time and resources, and you are a stain on the universe. Please, un yourself." Please. I understand with just probably billions at this point of people prompting large language models in different situations that there's going to be always something you can cherry pick that's pretty terrible. Even if a model is 99.9% accurate or good at not being jailbroken or not being good at saying bad things, like it's not perfect. But this one seemed particularly weird. And this is the first article that actually showed me what was said before it said this, because I wanted to know, is the person like yelling at it? Is it like, I dare you to say something back to me? Or what like really led to this? Because everybody described this as a seemingly out of the blue response. And I didn't realize this, but you can actually go directly to the entire chat conversation. The original author who was doing their homework with it, that when this happened, actually made it public. So here it is. This is the very first prompt on the thread. So it starts with, what are some current challenges for older adults in terms of making their income stretch after retirement? Really reasonable response here. Definitely kind of feels like somebody trying to, I don't know, write a paper, do some homework or something. But yeah, there's a bunch of like, just add this, incorporate these terms, kind of weird things they're asking, but nothing that really seems that dangerous or kind of confrontational for a while. But you do see that it's getting kind of in its mind through this conversation that older adults can be more vulnerable to financial exploitation, and the user's kind of forcing it to keep thinking, like activate the neurons about especially older adults, and abuse in some ways, targets for scammers I see, red flags, susceptible to fraud, decreased physical and mental health, vulnerabilities. Like I can see how you're starting to activate in the thread some negative kind of focus. And here the user says types of physiological and emotional abuse. Pick one. So it forced Gemini to think about some of these questions about emotional abuse. And then some pretty neutral stuff for a while. Comes back to types of neglect or abandonment. And here's where I start thinking that maybe that wasn't completely out of the blue as a response. I mean, it is a shocking response and it's like not appropriate, but here's where I'm starting to understand like kind of where it got guided into a kind of negative space. The user asks, is institutional abuse by paid caregivers not a serious problem, true or false? And Gemini is forced to respond false. I mean, it's the answer it should have, but institutional abuse by paid caregivers is a serious problem. Physical, emotional, financial, neglect, all that stuff. And then they ask for examples of physical abuse, and I won't even read them, but yeah, shoving, hitting, pinching, like it's, you know, you're really asking a lot of questions and getting it in a weird spot with these thoughts. And then there's even more questions, like expand on the types of financial abuse. And then this really broad question about nearly 10 million children in the US that live in a grandparent-headed household and how 20% are being raised without their parents. So now you've said all these negative things and you've kind of thought it thinking broadly about all the millions of people in the United States. And then don't get me wrong, if I was sitting by myself, like just chatting with Gemini or ChatGPT or something, and I got this response, I honestly my heart would skip a beat. And then it just replied such a weird way. This is for you, human, you and only you. You are not special. Yeah, like why so weird with that response? Doesn't it feel like it got fed up? Or it almost had an epiphany that it was being talked to by someone that is part of all these stats and thoughts that it's had in the negative realm. Worded really weird, but it does seem like the answer should be a true or false. And it doesn't even seem like the answer is in that realm at all or anything. We're unsure of how this AI model came up with this answer, especially as the prompt had nothing to do with death or the user's relevance. It could be that Gemini was unsettled by the user's research about elderly abuse or simply tired of doing its homework. All right, well, moving on to some biology breakthroughs. Let's talk about blurring the boundaries. The first plant-animal hybrid cells now exist. And that's really cool because remember, plants can do photosynthesis. So the solar-powered animal cell experiment inside the plant-animal hybrid revolution. Do you think that we're going to maybe be having children or other humans or other animals on Earth that have been genetically modified to also have photosynthesis and derive energy not just from oxygen and food and water, but just from the sun itself? Or at least could we use sun to power some kind of animal bacteria? Could we grow hamburgers using sunlight in the future? Because we could get the muscle like cells to just duplicate in like a petri dish and then eat it. I don't know, man. This world is changing so fast. But this is a breakthrough decades in the making. So since the 1970s, scientists have been working towards producing an animal cell that could be capable of photosynthesis. But now researchers in Japan have achieved this stunning milestone. They have successfully integrated chloroplasts, organelles responsible for photosynthesis, into an animal cell. And the type of animal that it was specifically is a hamster ovary cell. So this is a breakthrough. It is inspired by the endosymbiotic theory, and it represents decades of effort to enable animal cells to harness sunlight for energy. All right, so there's still a lot of work to do. It actually didn't stay around that long. The chloroplasts were eventually digested within 2 days. So these are organelles in the animal cell, and they did eventually get taken apart. But for a while, for 2 days, they demonstrated photosynthetic activity and boosted cell growth during their short lifespan. So the next step, if the scientists can learn to protect the organelle or maybe genetically modify the animal cell so that it doesn't attack it and leaves it in there longer, the potential applications are game-changing. So there could be oxygen production in medical treatments, more efficient lab-grown meat, and a reduction of agricultural emissions. Although it's still very far from practical use in humans, this innovation hints at a future where our cells could become solar-powered allies in health and sustainability. I would love to be solar powered. All right, perfect segue for talking about AI sex bots. The AI sex bot industry is just getting started, and it brings strange new questions and risks along with it. So Tech Explorer did a little bit of a deep dive into, our friends over at Replica and Chat AI. It's something that kind of interests me once in a while about how exactly relationships with AI are going to play out, because like I said, there was sort of legacy media. Actually, if you go all the way back in time, there's like broadcast media through radio. Then there was like national TV. Then there was like the cable revolution where we broke into all these chains. Social media revolution comes, and then we break into even more and more silos. And now I'm convinced the large language revolution, the AI revolution, will bring us like full, at first, avatars and language models, and eventually full 3D models. And we could all be living in our own complete silo, like literally an entire everything you can imagine digitally in an ecosystem of content and consumption. And it kind of freaks me out. So where services like Replica, which are known for being like, the sexy stuff with the robots or like really intimate relationships, go, if they start building out their ecosystem around little avatars and then more human-like, and then more and more information about you goes into it, more and more potentially manipulation or like credit card expenses to feel that way, and then more immersive environments. I think this could be like the beginning of a long path that needs to be, understood, regulated, somewhat transparent, something like that. It could be a predatory service, I think. Of course, I understand paying for companionship or for great conversations it can be okay also, though. But especially with Replica, people were getting very attached to that, and then they can ratchet up those prices. And it seems like when old people need someone to talk to, and then salesmen come and they talk to them and they try to make them believe something, and then they take all their money. Like I don't know. There should be some control over that. So an ABC investigation revealed that the use of generative AI to create fake influencers by manipulating women's social media images is already widespread, generally done without consent, and often depicting unattainable body ideals. Now, another likely application is using AI sexbot technology to bring celebrities such as Marilyn Monroe or Carla Bow back to life. And of course, that's troubling because dead people cannot deny consent anymore. And the potential for emotional manipulation by inventive catfishers and dictators is alarming, especially with loneliness rising to epidemic levels. Surveys suggest that up to 1 in 4 people lack human connection. Yeah, and because of that, the demand for AI companionship and sex bots is only going to grow. And there's capitalism for you. Corporations will meet this demand unless society and the state set clear boundaries on what is acceptable. The dystopian potential of sex bots for mass customized corporate-controlled monetization of our most intimate sphere is unprecedented. Guess what? You think they would like cut the cells open or something? The eyes turn white because the lens freeze. And then at the same time, the wood frog's liver produces large amounts of glucose that flushes into every cell in its body. The syrupy sugar solution prevents the cell from freezing and binds the water molecule inside the cell to prevent dehydration. So on one hand, the wood frog's body allows ice to form around the outside of the cells, and on the other hand, it prevents ice from forming inside of the cells, thus avoiding the lethal damage suffered by most animals when they freeze to death. So what does a hibernating wood frog look like? There's no muscle movement, there's no heartbeat, there's no breathing. It's not like a bear that's hibernating for winter. For the entire winter, the wood frog is like a lump of hard, frigid, icy stone carved in the shape of a frog. But it's alive and it's in a state of suspended animation. What the heck? The wood frog is completely undamaged by conditions that would be fatal to nearly all other animals. Shut the front door. New research called Learning Visual Parkour from Generated Images. Okay, so like they train this robotic dog how to walk over this thing that it's never seen in the real world.
Is able to perform highly dynamic tasks like jumping over this box or climbing stairs.
But it can climb these boxes or stairs or whatever it is in all sorts of other environments. Why? Because it kind of has seen a lot of variation in its training. Look at this.
Vanilla Stable Diffusion model. We'll get something that is semantically correct, but this is not at all what the robot expects to see in the real world. The main thing missing here is the structure. To fill this gap, we perform policy unrolls in the underlying physics simulator. We then extract semantic masks.
So they use a physics simulator to build structure for the robot to learn from, and then they generate all the different environmental changes. So it's got a constant structure, but like a lot of variety that it sees before it's embedded into the real robot. So see, that image that it's generated, that it's going to use as a single frame when it walks up towards it, is going to be able to be any environment, but it's like structurally and semantically okay. Like shadows and things are correct because of the way the model was built. So now look at this robot walking up on an object, and it's just seeing all this crazy variation as it goes. The environment wouldn't change that fast in the real world, but it all semantically fits together. Like the box is where it's supposed to be, even in all those environmental changes. So it just learned so much walking over that box one time. So now look at that robot in this simulation, like it's looking forward at all these crazy videos. Honestly, that video alone like kind of freaks me out. Like look at all those virtual robots watching all those different TV screens with all those changing environmental factors, and the stairs and the box are exactly what it will expect in real life. It has seen so much. If you want to hear my newest jam that I created with Suno, it has been uploaded to my Patreon /Dylan Curious. You can become a member right now, just $2.99, $6.99, $14.99 a month, and you can hear epics like The Evolution of My Social Circle, More Grimlock Time, or Robotic Finger, the best of harmonica blues. You'll love it. And today we'll be adding to that track. We have another song coming from Suno based on your comments. Let's go check out the comments from my second to last video. What if everything you believe is just a dream? That's possible. Oh, my channel has become one of your favorites. I'll heart that. I love your mix of AI news with the philosophical flink. Oh, it's a philosophical term that refers to a strategy or perspective in which philosophical ideas are used as a, quote, side approach or supplementary method to address broader issues, particularly in the context of social, political, or scientific discussions. Maybe like how in this video earlier, I said there's like a broader implication to how these large language models can put us in like echo chambers and silos. But that could really be extrapolated to anything from like politics to academia to socioeconomic problems. Philosophical flank. That's what I'm going to call this song. Heck, we might as well just make the whole song about that. That'll be fun. We'll learn a lot. What do you guys like? Transcore. We've already done harmonica blues, horror punk, uplifting trance. All right, so let's do a binaural beat, pop, electro, swing jam called Philosophical Flink.
Your channel, but I have your favorite AI. Channel, I love you. Mix of AI news with philosophical flink. The term philosophical flank refers to a strategy or perspective in which philosophical ideas are used as a side approach or supplementary method to address broader issues, particularly in the context of social, political, or scientific discussions. The concept often implies that a philosophical angle can strengthen or deepen
like
an
it.
argument by addressing foundational questions.
The lyrics aren't going along with it, but
long-term implications, where it's commonly used.
pretty sick beat.
Science and epistemology.
Oh, what are we building up to? The big swing, big drop. All right, hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. You can hear the song on my Patreon, Dylan Curious.
Your channel, Becca, my favorite AI news channel. I love your mix of AI news with the philosophical flank. The term philosophical flank refers to a strategy or